Adam, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. You?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for asking. So this episode, I want to talk about the fights that I find interesting. There's a lot of ratings online that you can check out that sees which fight has been the fight of the year. But on the top of my head, it's like iconic fights like Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. The one was Burns versus Chimaev. These kind of typical fights that were just awesome to watch. Like they go and at it full power.
Yeah.
Is there any fights that you kind of think is like put a mark on your fighting brain this year?
This year I'm not really sure because for me the years go together a little bit, like this year and last year, in terms of the fights. But there are like a lot of them. I mean, I would definitely mention, like the Burns Chimaev for me as well. It was a crazy fucking fight.
Yeah,
Uh
let's start with that one. Let's talk about that. What do you think about that fight?
Man, it was a pretty interesting fight because we saw this was the first time, and I think the only time when we saw Chimaev getting hit so much. Because before that he only absorbed, like, I think one or two significant strikes in his previous 3 or 4 fights in the UFC. And on this one, he got hit like something like 120 times. So it was fucking crazy. But we saw that he can stand and bang with a pretty good stand-up guy like Burns. So I was pretty impressed with his performance on that fight. uh
Yeah. What do you
how,
think the
how
reason?
about you? Like, what do you think about it?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I think he showed his inexperience in that fight,
Hmm.
Khamzat Chimaev. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you go in the plains of Africa and the safari or in the jungle, even the lion knows if it gets kicked in the jaw and his jaw breaks, it's dead. So when it
Hmm.
hunts a antelope or a gazelle or whatever, the lion needs to be careful because even the smallest mistake can hurt them. And with Gilbert and Chimaev, these are the predators of the top predators of the world, of the fighting world, right? Forget
Hmm.
about ranking, forget about scores. These are proper fighting killers. So when I see that Chimaev is going toe to toe, it's an unintelligent move. And
Hmm.
the only reason why I think he has done it because he got too caught up in the moment, too caught up in his own persona that he's this Chechen bad guy who's not afraid of anything. And then it just took so much damage, unnecessary damage. He could play that way smarter. So that's what I think. What do you think the reason for him taking so many punches, like you said earlier?
Well, I was gonna ask you, like, don't you think that it has to do with Burns' ground game? Because he's like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, like multiple times world champion. And I think it could be a little bit that he was a bit afraid of, getting caught up in a submission or something like that by Burns, because he's a world-class guy on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, it's a clear indicator. But see the same fight going down with Oliveira versus Islam.
Hmm.
Oliveira is known for his ground game.
Yeah, yeah.
But what happened? He was like it was not even an issue, and so I think it could be a factor when it comes to Gilbert and Chimaev. I think that was not a factor. I don't think he feared him on the ground. I don't think he feared him
Mhm.
at all. And that's what he should do. He should fear him a little bit. Because when you get too cocky, when you get too tough, you know, life don't discriminate for nobody. Everybody gets it. A
Hmm.
knockout, that's for everybody. If you're a human being, you will get knocked out in the fighting world, right?
Yeah, he
So I
even got
think I
knocked
think
down in that fight like once. I think it was in the second round, when Burns just caught him with a very nice left or right hook. I don't really remember, but yeah, like he could have got finished there easily, if it's if it's probably a few millimeters to the other direction, or or if it has a little bit more power, then he could have got finished easily.
Yeah. No, for me it's dominance. For me it's dominance, and Chimaev did not dominate that fight
Mm-hmm.
the way I hope they should do it.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he's been talked as a prospect in the fighting world. So from a fighting perspective, I think he was too hyped up on himself, which is only natural. It's inhumane to be affected by that, by all the talk and the own persona, the media tours, the press conference, all this stuff. You gotta create a lane. Are you the shit talker? Are you the bad boy? Are you the humble guy? Are you Jan who doesn't even speak? Like you gotta have your own thing, right? And I think he's got caught up a little bit in that, but also like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna challenge him. I'm stand up, sit down. It doesn't matter.
But
And
it's very interesting. It's very interesting because we're talking about this, that he could have got like knocked out or something, but we could also talk about if Chimaev knocks out Burns, then we would be talking about like what a great stand-up fighter he is, as well as just a wrestler. So if he knocked out Burns in that fight, then he would be totally different hype, like even way more hype than what he has now, because then we would probably have one of the very few guys in the UFC with awesome stand-up game and awesome ground game as well.
Yeah, awesome points, man. But also I think a lot of fighters after the Chimaev Burns fight kind of it made Chimaev more humane.
Mm-hmm.
He was not as feared as it was before that fight. They see that he's human. He can take damage. He's not that superior that he has, been portrayed to be. Mm-hmm. So I think, if we're talking similarities, let's look at stocks. The value of a stock when a company is great and producing and just evolving, the value of that stock is high. Mm-hmm. After that fight, I think Chimaev took a hit to his value as a fighter, because he grew. Of course, he learned from that fight. His coaches, his team. He is a fighter. He's a person. He learned from that fight. He knows that he's not superior. Like life gives everybody. so you cannot be on top forever. So I think that was a healthy experience for him to see. Hopefully, he's adjusted and he's going to be coming back worse than ever. You saw in the second fight he had, or the fight after, against this black guy. I don't remember his name.
Kevin Holland.
Yeah, Kevin Holland.
Yeah. Oh my God, man! He
fucking
dominated him. Like, yeah, it was crazy. But I agree with you, like to your previous point, that he kind of had this mystic, hype about him. That there is this guy, like fucking Chechen, and he only got hit like twice in 4 UFC fights, and like, oh my God, like everybody's so hyped. And that hype with the Burns fight, it was gone, because we saw him get hit by a world-class guy like Gilbert Burns.
He rocked him, he stunned him several times.
Was that?
Burns rocked him and stunned him several times,
Yeah.
Punched him right in the face, kept him like and the most not disturbing, but kind of a thing that I noticed, that like he didn't have an answer for it.
Mm-hmm.
Burns was coming with the overhand over, these punches, and he rocked him, stunned him several times. Even when he fell down to the ground, he started to kind of want to wrestle him, and he just kicked him in the chest. And then the bell went, so it's like Burns didn't give a shit, and I got a ton of respect for Burns for taking that fight. The hype around Chimaev, and the hype is real. Chimaev is an incredible, exceptional fighter. But Burns, he didn't give a shit. He took him seriously. He was fighting every millimeter of that fight. Even in the clinches, in the takedowns, in the toe-to-toe stand-up fights, So that fight for 2022, I think that's something I will remember for quite some time.
Yeah, but then again, like Burns had nothing to lose in that fight, I think, because you know he already had some losses on his record before, and yeah, but at the same time, if he's the one, you know, who beats Chimaev, then his stocks, you know, go fucking high after that, because then he would just be fucking on another level, you know, if he would be the guy who beats Chimaev, but he wasn't, obviously. So we'll
Yeah.
yet to see who can do that, if anybody can do that.
Yeah, it's gonna be funny to see. Another fight that I wanted to talk about was Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman.
Mm.
What a thriller, man, huh?
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. I mean,
Like this is the script of making a movie,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
When he
With
had
the
a
they should play that fight with the Rocky team music, you know.
but that's his nickname.
Yeah, I
Leon
know.
Rocky Edwards, right?
Yeah.
And did you see like in the last before the last round when it's in the corner, his coach is talking to him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you seen that clip?
That's fucking iconic, man. Yeah. Uh, yeah. That was
You remember
crazy.
what the coach said? Did you remember? I don't remember what he said. He said something to him,
Something
like
like, you know, let's go, Leon, you know, and let's go, Leon. You only have one round, or he was talking something like this. But I don't, you know, I
yeah,
don't
we
really
gotta go out in
remember
the
the.
fire, Leon. Come on, man. You gotta take it out of the hat. You gotta perform here, man. You gotta.
Yeah, the coach see it right. I think, you know, that Leon had nothing to lose because it was the fifth round, right? So, and he was losing the fight because Usman just fucking out wrestled him, you know.
Wasn't it in the last minute as well?
I think it was like the last minute as well. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, waiting
Yeah.
24 minutes to knock out the best fighter in the category in the world.
Yeah.
And he waits until the final minute to execute that kick. And that
Mm,
we talked about this earlier, but a lot of people say, "Oh, he's lucky shot, this headshot." But what we saw from the warm up and the trainings, they've been analyzing that move. They've
mm.
been they've been wanting to execute that move on Kamaru Usman.
Yeah. He used it, I think, because before that he fought Belal Muhammad, and he used the same kick against Belal Muhammad as well, but he just didn't catch him so clean, you know. So that's why he didn't get knocked out. But yeah, like Usman just got caught like fucking clean. So, you know, it was obvious what's gonna happen when that kick landed, you know.
Yeah. No, that's also like why I like that fight so much for 2022 is because um, it was building a persona of Leon Edwards that you cannot moment, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's made like making a sword in like in the hottest ovens where they're doing that kind of a uh, building that katana or that sword. It's like in the heat of the all, that's where the magic happens. But you got to be able to endure that tiring, that pain, that exhaustion, that pressure, all of that. It's like creating diamonds. That you know if you take away the pressure, it's only black stones. To
Mm-hmm.
apply pressure to the diamonds, then is when you create the diamonds. And that's what I think is so amazing with the Leon Edwards fight. When he made that head kick, that headshot, and his way when he reacted to the win, when a referee jumped in and made a stoppage, and then he just walks around. He just walks around the octagon. I was like, of course I executed. Of course I've been in pain for this fight. Of course I've been unlucky in the build-ups in my career. Of course I have a hard start working, like born in a fucking shed in Jamaica, grown up in the UK, under hard circumstances, and then like everything led to that moment. It's almost like it was how do you say, like cosmic, man. It was like everything was on the right time at the right moment, and it
Mm-hmm.
just happened. And
Mm-hmm.
I some part of it is like that's when we talk about mixed martial arts. That's where the art part comes in. That fight for me was so much more than just fighting, because it was like the purest form of human expression. You just give yourself all to the moment, and you don't care if you live or die. I'm gonna do the best that I have, and you kind of express it through fighting, and it was just like it's hard to explain, but it was an amazing fight, and I think for me that's one of my favorite fights of the year.
Right. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, but I think a lot of people don't see it, that sophisticated way how you see it. A lot of people were just fucking happy, like, yeah, it's a knockout, and Usman lost, so that's why a lot of people like that fight. But yeah, I agree with you. It was a fucking iconic fight, and yeah, it's what Leon did in that fight. It was pretty amazing. Yeah, and
Because I
what?
see it in context. I see it in context,
Mhm.
when I'm saying that, I mean, you remember when Kamaru Usman won his title fight?
Who was the against Tyron Woodley, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah,
You remember what happened after the fight?
I don't.
So Tyron Woodley's mom approached Kamaru Usman,
Right.
and Kamaru Usman was very humble, and it's like, "Don't cry, baby. This is your turn. This is your turn." So his opponent's mother approached him and said, "Don't be sad. Don't be sad for me as a mother. This is your time. It's your time
Mm-hmm.
now. Just be
Mm-hmm.
ready because they will come for you.
Mm-hmm.
They will come for you." And in that moment, it was like it's so pure emotions, man. People put their lives on stake, literally, for these
Yeah.
moments, right? For fighting. And then you have the mother that's giving birth to these fighters, right? Approaching the other fighters with so much respect and care, saying, it's your time, but make sure that you work hard because they will come for you too, the same way you came for my son. So be
Mm.
ready. And it's so emotional because it's such a strong situation to be in, and you will never get that in an office job or working in the sewers, or like these moments are just saved for special situations like that. And then when you look fast forward, and then you see that Kamaru Usman has been fighting title defenses, knocking people out, grinding them, throwing them, wrestling them, punching them down. Every haters just representing like the three kings of Africa, just everything coming together. And then it's almost a beauty in that part where he gets knocked out by Leon Edwards, because his story again.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about the legend being born from Jamaica, grown in the UK, and now he has a whole other momentum around him. And this could
For sure.
only happen, if Kamaru Usman dedicated himself so much, so he was able to take out Tyron Woodley, take out all these other opponents, and being the fair number one guy in the division. And
Right.
then it happened, and like his contribution to the fighting world made Leon Edwards' contribution even bigger. So it doesn't matter. Like if you look at Muhammad Ali, when they're fighting their opponents, they're so intervened in each other's life. You cannot be Muhammad Ali if it wasn't for Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
These are so connected.
Of course. I mean, you gotta beat the man to be the man, right? So
Wow, man. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you got to beat the man to be the man, huh?
yeah, of course. I mean, that's what makes Leon's achievement so big, because he just took out the pound for pound, champion at that time, who was, arguably the best fighter, still is in the world. And yeah, so it's definitely a big achievement for Leon. I don't know like how long it will last for him though, because as we saw in that fight, against Usman, if it wasn't for the head kick, he would have lost. He's like not doing so well against wrestlers, I think. And in that division, you got, Usman, you got Covington, and you got Chimaev. So, I think any of these fights with Leon Edwards, I'm not sure that they all beat Leon Edwards for sure, but I wouldn't put too much money on Edwards. But
No,
then again, it
this
doesn't take away from his achievement against Usman. I'm not saying it in that context. It's just yeah, kind of off topic, that I'm not sure like how long his championship will remain.
Yeah. There's no guarantee for that in the fighting world, and it will fucking change in a split second. The last minute of a 25-round fight, and then it changes in a split second, right? So there's no guarantee, and that's probably one of the things that makes it so interesting to watch mixed martial arts in the UFC in that level. Another fight that I want to talk about is Israel Adesanya against Pereira.
Yeah, I was actually gonna mention that fight kind of ended the same way as the Edwards and Usman fight, because fifth round, the other African guy just gets knocked out by a challenger. So it was pretty similar, and winning the fight beforehand, because both Usman and Adesanya was winning, like, I think, both, or like all the 4 rounds before. And like when Adesanya Pereira fight happened, so I really thought that because of his mixed martial arts experience, Adesanya is gonna win that fight, because he was just a much more experienced mixed martial artist. Even though Pereira had 2 wins against him in kickboxing before, but I just thought that because it's a different game, you have takedowns, you have the clinch, you have you can push your opponent to the cage, whatever. You have all these other tools, so I just thought that, Adesanya will use them properly and win the fight. But he was even taking down, like he even took down Pereira, but he just couldn't hold up in the 5th round and got knocked out. So it was very interesting, but I would definitely love to see a rematch, though. In this one, I think it's very 50-50, who takes the rematch.
Yeah, I think why that fight was special for me was a lot of the approach to the fight from Pereira's side.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, there's something that we talk about in the fight world that says, like, everything you do has a meaning, and everything doesn't mean nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So when you come to this level, it's like people have how to say, like, lucky rituals that they do. They always tie the first left glove, and then they tie their right glove. If they do the other way around, they're gonna have bad luck. It doesn't really matter, but they still have these kind of superstitions sometimes, right?
Right.
And what I pick up is on those small nuances, like those small things that the fighters do in the press conferences, in the interviews, in their training, in their expression as a human being, right? And when Pereira is coming to these kind of face-offs with this, I don't know, peacock costume that he had, red face paint and the peacock uniform, is like, it's just a fight, man. But he went down to his roots, to his primitive roots, and he's like, I'm all in. It's like a tribal war, and you never know if you're going to come back. So you're just painting your face in blood and making sure that you're ready. Like, when that type of dedication, when you don't care about the mockery, people are going to make fun of that costume, but you don't care. You're in the zone for something, And then on the other side, you have the defender of the title wearing fucking lip gloss. I don't know what do you call it, like this nail paint and all this jewelry and all this kind of stuff. Is like, it's the old Rocky mentality, like, eye of the tiger. You're in the, give a shit, he's like, I'm in here for one job only, and that is to take out Israel Adesanya. It's quite funny when you look at it, because you mentioned it before also. He was in the same position as Kamaru Usman, and he lost.
Yeah.
And I think, without making any statistics just based on 2 fights, but it's like there are some similarities there. But I think it all comes down to the mental attitude of the fighters. Because if they're not in there to knock out the challenger, if they're not in there to have a game plan of dominating and controlling and just constantly breaking their game and making them frustrated, Pereira was pushing always.
Hmm.
Forward, forward, forward. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's a person with no respect for you as a fighter. He's not fearful of anything that you can bring to him,
Oh,
and he will
the
face.
guy is fucking stone cold, man. I mean,
Yeah, stone
you know,
cold killer.
even when he TKO'd Adesanya, you know, then he was like not jumping around or you know like fucking screaming, you know, or doing some shit like Chimaev does, for example. But he was just fucking like it's another day in the office, right? He just knocked him out, you know, and just fucking walk away, you know, with a stone cold face. Like the guy is a fucking killer, man.
That's so true, man. That's a really good observation because the emotional state of him was so calm and collected.
Mm.
He was so professional, and it's just like second. We just see it seconds in our life, Second after the fight, the way in the face. All these small indications just tells me something about their dedication and their approach to the fight. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the opponent. It has everything to do with yourself as a fighter, as a person. How serious you take your job. How dedicated you approach it. And even if you're hardworking and do the job, do the reps, you do all the drills, but that's not enough. You've got to have a genuine desire to kind of break down your opponent.
Right.
You gotta have like bad intentions when you're fighting this guy. You're not fighting a guy, you're just fighting a shadow. The shadow needs to be broken, right? And I think what Pereira and Adesanya fight meant to me was exactly that from Pereira's side. And that's what I told you before the fight also, when we chatted a little bit, like, dude, I think this dude got it. And you're like, no, I don't think so. And then we saw the fight. You were right for the most part of the fight, but at the end, boom, he got it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think you're right because Pereira has this big advantage that I think he got the mental part of the game like very, very strong, and I think that's a huge advantage for him because if you don't get it right, if you don't get the mental part right, then you can be the fittest guy in the world, you will lose, right?
Exactly. All right, so I don't know how much time we have left.
We have about 9 more minutes.
All right, so let's talk about Islam versus Oliveira then.
Right. So what do you think about that? Because I think that's not really a candidate for the year of the fight of the year in my eyes, because it was kind of a one-sided fight and quite dominant, from Makhachev's side. So but what do you think?
Thank you. I think it's definitely one fight of the year because he did Islam did exactly what I wanted to see from a challenger. This is what I talked about earlier. This is what I want to see. I want to see them come in and dominating, breaking the game, exploiting every possibility and just dominating. It doesn't have any, for me as a person, I don't have any desire to dominate a person in any setting, right? But when it comes to fighting, agreed fights where you're voluntarily meeting toe to toe and say, let's see who's the best, right? Then that's the rules, that's the game, and both agree to it. And then it's domination. And as a man, the primitive fighter, caveman inside of me just want to see that. And he just run over him like it was a Sunday morning on the way to the park.
Yeah,
it was like a huge build-up. Oliveira was like, "Oh, this is the fight," and then Islam was like, "You know what? I'll fight him anywhere. Location, doing that kind of Khabib style, right? Because Khabib is like 90% of his DNA, right? So when it comes down to the fight, it was so interesting to watch how the champion just crumbled. There was no mental force. There was no desire to dominate or to break. And it reminds me of the thing that Mike Tyson once said, like he's scared. He's so scared to fight. Mike Tyson was afraid of every fight. But until the second he walked into the ring, then he knew. even before the fight started, the fight was over. He's gonna, he was so clear. When he looked us in the eyes, when the referees explained the rules, everything, he just could see it in the eyes of the opponent. He was already finished. The other opponent just didn't know it yet. And the same thing I felt with Oliveira,
Thank you.
And it's so incredible to see that another person can just take over your persona this way. It just makes you a lesser person, a lower version of yourself,
Well, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, what you're saying. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, why could it happen to Oliveira? Because like exactly in that fight, because before that he fought Poirier, he fought Justin Gaethje, Chandler, and all those guys knocked him down. All those guys kind of dominated him, up until the moment that he just fucking finished all of them. So, they couldn't break him. They had the chance in a way to break him, but he was just so strong mentally, physically, in every way in those fights. So I'm just wondering, like, what the hell happened, with when he fought Islam Makhachev? Like, is it just that Islam Makhachev is so much more skilled, so much more mentally strong, or does it have to do with the fight happened in a Muslim country? So that could play a part as well. But I'm just really wondering. I cannot really figure that out.
Yeah, like nobody can. That's the part of the human nature. There's no like two lines on the correct answer. But I think that that fight was over before it began, because there was not enough time, there was not enough damage, there was not enough dominance in the fight to break Charles Oliveira if he was in his right state of mind. If he was hungry, if he was just excited, if he was he wanted to fight, he wanted to dominate, he wanted, that amount of time was not enough to break him. And it was not like a cold knockout thing. It was a knockdown, and then it went over to submission, and it was over, right?
Yeah.
So it's more like him giving up. And you don't give up within that little time frame when you have traveled that far. You have so many friends, you have so many people backing you up. There's so much on the line. The whole country is just watching you as a fighter. Brazil has so much pride. So I think that fight was over before it started. And actually, he was given a fight now recently, offered a fight. I don't remember against who, but he said no, he needed the time off.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move from him. That's a smart move. However, like to your previous point, like I think that it doesn't matter at that point when Islam had him in the. I think it was an arm triangle choke, right? So when he had him in the arm triangle, I think at that point it didn't matter anymore whether he taps or not, because if he doesn't tap, he just goes to sleep at that point. Like you don't just escape, Islam's arm triangle. It's like it's not really, it's just not really gonna happen. But yeah, like with the time off, I think I agree that he takes the time off. I think that's a smart decision. You saw like the Tai Tuivasa fight last weekend.
Yeah,
he just got knocked out, man, because I think he also
but that
made
was pure power, man. Pure power. That was muscle against not muscle.
Yeah. Fat, just say it, man, come on. Yeah, but I mean, I think that he also came back too quick, because he just got knocked out by Cyril Gane, I think, like what, 2 months ago. And that was just not enough time to face another fucking monster. So
all right, to sum it up a little bit, I think what for me will make the fight of the year is the story around it, the personality in it. It's not the technical achievements necessarily. That of course is also very important, but it's more the build up, the finish, the way that they approach it, the story behind it. So if I had to pick a fight right here and now, I think the most interesting fight that I saw, the action-filled fight that I saw, was Gilbert and Chimaev.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to choose like the best fight of the year, I think I would go with Kamaru and Leon because of the finish.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted the pure dominance, the challenger just doing exactly textbooks example what you should do to take over a throne from a king, then that's Islam versus Oliveira.
Right.
So these are my things. But fight of the year so far, middle of December, I think Mr. Leon Edwards against Kamaru Usman, man. That's where
Mm-hmm.
which made a lot of impression with me. I will take that fight with me for the next year as well. Just remember that situation.
Yeah, it's a lot of good fights happened this year. I think, to mention one recent fight, it would be the Stephen Thompson against Kevin Holland. It was fucking awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
it was more like a kickboxing fight, or a Muay Thai fight, because there was not much of grappling going on. But yeah, like the fight was still pretty
Thompson
fucking
took a lot
awesome.
of
Yeah,
damage though, right?
right. That's true. That's true. All right. I
But
think.
it's a lot of
Yeah. Sorry.
all right. No, it's fantastic, buddy. I think it's awesome. If you don't talk more for the rest of the year, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Boldog og evigt and godt nyttår
Same to you, buddy.
og god jul. All
Yeah.
right, buddy. Have a good one. I talk to you later.
All right. Yeah. Ciao.
Ciao, buddy.